this is Codex. This is decentralized data storage. The schedule's completely messed up. So if you're expecting something else, this is what you're going to get. Okay? So, hello. This is Marina. My name is Ben. Here from Codex.storage, doing decentralized data storage. It is an honor and a privilege to be here talking to you about this. I have some content for you. I put it in the table. It's a table of content. First, we do a little bit about why we need Web3, what's wrong with Web2. You probably heard it in lots of talks already here today from lots of people. Just briefly, we'll talk about how Codex fits into the Web3 picture, what the hell it is, and what it's good for, sort of. Then how it works, although I might have to be pretty quick about that because it's only 10 minutes, but we'll see what we can do. And now how you can connect with us Friday or what's coming down the pipeline for this. So what is wrong with Web 2? Why do we need Web 3? Right? I just put a few issues that I could think of in like 2 minutes flat. Online identity. People say, I have an account with this web service, or I have an account with something. I'm on this platform, right? But actually, when you think about it, every time you need to put in a username and a password, and you're relying on some other server to tell you whether you are who you say you are, is that really your account then? Is that your identity? Because if the server doesn't want to tell you that it's you, then whose account is it, so to speak? This has had a whole bunch of downstream consequences. One of those is everything now is a data harvesting scam. So I have this mobile phone, this smartphone. I don't like it. They have an app for my local grocery store. I can install it and get like 3% discount on my groceries. You install it, it asks for permissions, right? It would like to access your camera, your microphone, your location history, all your contacts, and the local data on your phone, right? And then it gives you a few % off on your groceries, right? Now, you and I, and you're in like clever and attentive audience, you don't fall for that, but like a lot of people, they just click accept and they don't think about it, right? So on the other side, subscription models are absolutely going crazy. I remember still a time when you could pay for software once and then you get it, like maybe even on a disk or something, and then that's it. These days, you can go online, you can buy software with perpetual licenses that expire in 3 years, and then you have to buy it again, right? But it says perpetual license, asterisk, and then if you scroll all the way down, after it says, yeah, it's like, that means 3 years or 5 years or something. Because you don't actually own any of it, right? Because it's not your account, it's their account, and you'll keep paying as long as you have to pay. Also, they can now update apparently the license agreements whenever they want to, and you can either deal with it or lose what you purchased, right? So I already clicked the next one. Another downstream consequence of this is that basically it makes censorship and surveillance pretty easy. You don't really have to do anything. If you have a database somewhere with all the data from everyone anywhere, then you just run your AI agents over it, and then that's it. Everyone's privacy gets invaded, whether you are presumed guilty of something or not. What we want with Web3, I was thinking about it, like what is the point? We want to build technology that serves individual people, right? Because if you really think about it, the way the web works right now, who does it serve? Well, spoiler, it's not you, right? So we want to build technology that serves individual people. And what I think has been, every time Web3 has a success, the thing they got right is they think frame the incentives first. If you think of everything that was working pretty good right now in Web3, the thing they got right most is the incentives. If you think about where Web2 went wrong, like it used to be that was just for nerds, but then like the whole world and their mom got on the internet, right? And it got a lot of attention and money, and it pretty much gave out at its weakest point, which is the incentives. Yeah, that's where all the previous examples came from. So I was thinking this, I'm happy to talk about this like for another hour, but actually let's also talk about the project. Web3 runs on a bunch of infrastructure, and you have incentives to incentivize people who operate the infrastructure to do it for you as the user of the Web3. Even if it's like anonymized and decentralized and you don't know who it is, it still all works. Our project, Codex, is going to be, we focus on the decentralization of the data storage. There are several projects that already purport to do this. We have made comparisons with their systems with ours, and I don't have them all memorized. Also, don't want to let this anyone and be unkind to them, because the truth is, we spend a lot of time looking at what other decentralized storage networks have done, and if their ideas work really well, then maybe we do something similar, and otherwise maybe we try something else. So respect to them, right? Shoulders of giants and all that stuff. Very simply, how the thing is put together, there's a peer-to-peer data layer, obviously, so you have a nodes with networks and they exchange data. That by itself doesn't give you your data any durability, any resilience, because nodes could go offline and your torrents can disappear from the network, so to speak. So we need some kind of engine that checks what's where and that the data is shuffled around so that when the nodes go down, it's repaired in other nodes and the data stays in the network. That's the data durability engines, like the core concept of how this thing is working. And the whole thing is mediated by smart contracts on chain, where they run sort of an automated marketplace for storage. So you could have your own node. You could say, I have this space, I want to sell it. This is the price I want for it. And there are other people that go on chain and say, I'm looking for storage. And the system automatically figures out like the matchmaking. Make sense? Yeah? So perfectly? Okay. So what is the use of decentralized storage capacity, right? Basically, you could think about dApps, right? You have your decentralized drop to boxes storage apps that's fairly user-facing. We haven't built any of that. It can all be built on top of the system that we're building. We're just tossing out ideas of what this thing could be good for. These are user-facing applications. So it's something that as a person you would use. It's underpinned by this bit of infrastructure. Something else you can do that actually might even be more impactful, but it's less visible, are things like archives. So if you are running a blockchain that is building blocks and keeping a history, the history only goes up. It doesn't go down. You need to store more and more data. Now, if your node operators are required to store this data, then you have the data replicated on all the nodes. This increases the cost for the node operators. They have no choice but to raise the gas prices so that they can break even, right? If we could offload stuff like chain history to a storage layer that is designed to handle stuff like that, it could drastically reduce the cost of gas fees pretty much for any blockchain that has this issue. I know there are some blockchains, they don't keep history past like 3 months or 6 months or something. Then they don't have that issue. But prove that your state is recomputable or something. That was solution story, like I said. So that's the use side. That's the use space for this decentralized storage. What we also need is to provide the capacity to the network, because we're not running any storage services. We're just making the protocol and implementation that uses the protocol. But we need other people to come in and provide the capacity. So that means like home stakers, basically. I have a computer left over, I have a hard drive left over, I'm going to get some tokens for it. Sure, you could do this. You could do this. This is just you, me, everybody, just consumer-grade hardware, right? Actually, we have plans to make this thing run on a Raspberry Pi. I looked at the metrics of the new proving system. I can't doubt it, but it's a nice idea. There are also people, companies, organizations, they have clusters. They have like a room full of storage machines, and they have idle capacity. So they could then, provide that to the network and get rewarded for it. Interesting thing I want to mention here, something that's happened in the past with decentralized storage systems is if you have a home staking system and you're offering like a terabyte, then someone else comes in with a cluster and they offer several exabyte, right? Then the system was not really giving the home stakers a chance to store any data. So we consider that, and we actually found a clever way to sort of make sure that even if you're a home staker, your capacity is much smaller than the storage clusters, you still always have a fair shot at being considered for storing the contracts, storing the data, and receiving the tokens. Obviously, you can't store as much as a cluster, so you don't get as much reward, but it's not like you'll be locked out because some other host scroll is way faster or way cheaper or something. and doesn't necessarily do that. Okay, so that was the end of the nice visual. This is going to be how it works, and I drew this, so it looks crappy. How much time do I have? Anyone been keeping track?
You slot.
4 minutes?
Hey, go on.
Yeah, I'm going to go on to some stuff. Okay. So I drew a quick picture of how this works. This is just a happy weather floor. Like, so if everything goes well, it'll work like this. So here we have some Codex nodes, and I color coded them. The blue ones are the ones that have space per cycle. And then there's the yellow one that has some data. Look, here's some data. And it wants to store it in the node. Then there's a blockchain here. Anything EVM compatible will do. We have smart contracts that are just EVM compatible right now. So I'll tell you the story, how it goes, right? I have the original data, and I want to store it. So the first thing I do is that you erase your coding and make some parity data. If you don't know how that works, very simply, if you manage to obtain any 3 of these 6 blocks, you can always reconstruct the original data, right? The advantage of that is we get to shuffle that data around, and then the data is less vulnerable to be lost because any 3 of these 6 will get you the original data. Then you go on chain and you post a contract saying, hey, I have some data. It's this big. I want to pay this much for storage for this. And then these other guys that have the space available, they notice that on chain and they check with their capacity. It's like, do I have capacity to store this data? How long do they want to store the data? If it's something I want to do, maybe I don't want to take out a contract for 5 years. Maybe I want something shorter. So it's disregarded that way. And then, does it even pay enough, right? Because if there's a contract on chain and they only pay like a mini amount of tokens, maybe that's not interesting for me as a spot provider. So let's say that in this case, these 3 nodes, they agree, like this contract is interesting to them. So they go to the P2P, the data layering, they fetch the data from the uploading node. So it takes it in like sets of this. Actually, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but there's like a clever way to distribute these blocks across these nodes such that if any one of these fail, there's always a good chance that you can still reconstruct the data. Yeah? So they then submit a proof that they have the data to the chain. And at that moment, they are entered into a contract with the providing node. That basically you agree to store the data, you prove that you have it. And then this way, it ensures the durability, right? Because it's like actively looking for faults in the data and trying to repair them, which is like really cool. I think that's really cool. So sometime later, the originator of the data comes back and they can download it from the data because I don't have it anymore, because why would you store it there if you plan to keep it locally, right? You put the data there so you don't have it locally. Later on, you can fetch it back. Maybe it's some your video content or something, or an AI model or a history of a blockchain, and now I need to validate something, right? Sometime even later, the contract finishes, right? Because the contract always have a fixed duration. You set up when you make the contract beginning. So at the end, the hosts get rewarded for their service. And, in the beginning, I forgot to say, they lock in collateral, right? When they first submit the proof, they lock in collateral. Should they fail on their obligations to the data, we can punish them by removing some or all of their collateral. So, but then they've all behaved nicely. They get the collateral back. They get the reward. The service was rendered. The people who provided the service were paid. So, like I said, this is the happy weather scenario. There's a whole bunch of more moving pieces around here. I don't have time to go into it. I just want to say that you can look forward to, we are looking for participants in the testnet. The testnet's live right now. This stuff I showed you already works. When I don't break it, it still works. I just recently broke it, but we're fixing it and it's coming back, and then you can actually try and work it. So we need people to help us try and test this thing. We are looking for projects that have a need for decentralized storage. So I've been going around the conference, talking to a lot of people, talking to a lot of projects, and figuring out where do you store your AI models that you say you can execute decentralizedly, and what do you do with the history of your fancy DAG-based blockchain or something? Right? Is this a good fit? Do you want to try our testnet, right? So that's been my task for the past few days. We're also, of course, looking for people that happen to have underutilized storage. So actually in talk with several data centers, they have clusters. They're not doing much with it. They want to try this. The testnet tokens obviously aren't worth anything, but if you can prove you can earn those, then when we go mainnet, you know that it works, which is hopefully by the end of the year. We should be mainnet ready by the end of the year. So then from that point on, we should be able to at some point launch this, which I think would be really cool. You could connect with us further. We've been running around these conference and side events all day, every day. But in case you want to just calm down, just read at your own pace, you go to codex.storage. Remember that? Codex.storage. We've got like Discords and GitHubs and white papers, and it's all findable there. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your kind attention.